been running all night in the woods. There's a Blair Witch after me. Only joking. So welcome to my first, possibly ever, mudlarking video, where I'm just going to do a gentle introduction of how I go about just walking around in the mud. So here we are, it's July, early morning, and we're just outside Surrey Docks Farm. Over there, we're in Rotherhithe, there's Canary Wharf. I live about 2 minutes up the road, and this is Rotherhithe foreshore. There's the Hilton Hotel, and there's West India Quay. So what we'll do is have a quick walk around and just see what we can find. Rotherhithe is actually been around for about 200 or so years. Surrey Docks Farm, which is over there, used to be situated on the Metropolitan Asylum Board, and back in the 1850s, right through to the 1900s, we had sailing ships full of sick people come all the way up through here and dock just about over there and take them to the Metropolitan Asylum Board, where it was effectively like a hospital for the sick, and these people would have been then carried back along up the shore, up through to Deptford and Greenwich, which is that way. It's got further up the foreshore itself, about a mile up that way. There's also, they did a lot of dismantling of ships, so along here we'll find lots of nails and bits of things from ships, and hopefully we'll find something interesting from that as well. So let's get started. So I'm taking a walk along the foreshore now, just near the steps, the access point. The actual tide itself is on its way out. Got a good hour and a half here before it starts turning, but already just walking along just a few feet, we can already see things on the foreshore itself. There, for example, here we have a bit of what's called stoneware pottery, very distinct, quite thick, and this would have been some kind of an inkwell, like that in shape. Stoneware can be anywhere from around 1600, 1700 right through to Victorian age. Now this is more Victorian because it feels quite smooth. It feels something that's been mass produced, as opposed to something earlier which would be handmade and sort of wouldn't have this kind of like smooth texture to it. This, as I said, would have been some kind of inkwell like that, and it's kind of typical, found in this area, because of its connections to the Metropolitan Asylum Board there, which was kind of like an administrative centre to the in the sort of Victorian age. So just looking near around the pot itself, we can see little clay pipes like this. Now these are the clay pipe stems. Everyone will find these right along the foreshore throughout the Thames itself. These little pieces of stems are difficult to date because I don't have anything distinctive at all. Let me see if I can work out how to zoom. There we go. So there's nothing distinctive, no patterning at all on here. So these are undateable. Then we move on to something like this. So this is the actual start of the actual bowl itself, which would have gone here. Now the bowl itself is the only distinctive part of the clay pipe stem that is dateable, and what we're doing is trying to look for the actual stem itself rather than the bowl itself rather than the actual stem, sorry. And if you're lucky, we'll find bowls like this, something I found a couple of weeks ago, and hopefully you can sort of see some patterning on this actual bowl. The patterning is some feathers, and this patterning is typical of what's called the Prince of Wales feathers, and it's dated to 1820 to 1840. So what we're doing is trying to look for these rather than these. So as we move along the foreshore, we'll typically this like shingly area is where the waves have deposited artifacts, like small pieces of pottery, and because of the kind of like hard nature and abrasive nature of the actual surface, it's the size of the pottery is quite small, as you've seen, as opposed to this area here, which is very, very muddy, but it's actually being eroded as opposed to deposited, so there's more chance of actually finding larger pieces of pots or bottles or sort of more complete items around this area. Now normally I'd go quite far out into the mud, but I've just realised I've actually got holes in my shoe, so I'm not going to go out too far today, but let's have a look what we can find. Isn't the nicest thing to do, but if you ever come mudlarking with me, I'm going to insist on you coming onto this part of the land just for the full experience. But it's, as you can sort of see, if there are items and artifacts and objects around here, it'll be much easier to sort of see than in the shingle. So yeah, let's keep walking and seeing if we can find anything. So one of the watch-outs with foreshore walking and beach caving are things like that, which is actually a piece of asbestos, which is why I started wearing gloves now. Unfortunately, I come across these pieces all the time along the foreshore throughout London, and it's something, as long as you can recognise it, you can sort of watch out for it. But nearby we have this large piece of, it's not a piece of pot, as you can tell, it's very, very thick, and it's actually a piece of Victorian sewage drain pipe. Good thing I'm wearing gloves now. This is, again, these kinds of pieces are typically found along the foreshore, and it's somewhere, once the tide goes out, somewhere along there is actually a drain pipe in situ, so that's actually quite a nice thing to see. Another common find is glass. Now obviously, glass can be across many different centuries, and is very, very hard to date unless it's got writing on it. Now this piece, which I've just found, has got something on here. It says Courtoisier. I don't know what that is. It might be modern, who knows, but it's worth looking up. 0.35 litres. The shape of it is quite interesting because it's not a typical, I don't know, glass bottle shape. So not quite sure what that could be used for, but I'll do a bit of research and find out. So just had a clipper go by. Now one of the bad things about clippers is that it does create all this backwash, and you don't want to be near the edge of the ties once a clipper goes by. But one good thing is that it does erode the foreshore a little bit more, uncovering more of the foreshore. So I always keep an eye out just to see what we can find, and what any small objects, any large objects that start to appear. I've moved away from the muddy area because I can feel the mud getting into my shoes, but we'll have a little walk along here and see what else we can find. So leather is something that preserves well along the foreshore. So this is a leather shoe. Now one of the things I found out recently in my research is how to actually date shoes. The older the shoe, i.e. the more you go into the medieval period, the more pointy the end is, and the more smaller the holes are, and the more frequent the holes are, the more modern it becomes. So you can imagine sort of the small machine stitched sort of Victorian straight modern sort of shoes having a completely different style to an old handmade leather shoe. Now this has got holes along the edge, but also got holes in the middle, and this is typical of it's a kind of like a workman's boot from sort of like the Victorian era, possibly maybe a little bit earlier. These holes would have been filled with studs, and this is kind of like a stud footwear, sort of like probably a docklands worker would have sort of worn in this area. You can sort of see there's almost like a diamond pattern on this, so it might be dateable from using this pattern, but we'll see from the research. So here's another piece of pot made from red clay, but you can sort of see it's a lot more finer than the examples that we've seen so far today, and you can even sort of see the glaze on the inside. This is actually a type of what's called lead glaze, and it's typical of around about 1600, 1700. It's a step up from the unglazed sort of very thick pottery that and cooking pots that we've seen so far. So this would have been used for someone with a higher status. Just seen another glass jar or something, and it's actually got writing on here. So that's what it says. It says INE infectant. So it's either wine disinfectant. Is that such a thing? Right, so having said that I wasn't going to go into the mud, I've just seen something there. It looks white, it looks quite large. I'm not quite sure what it is, so let's have a look. Just have to be careful where I'm standing. definitely a vessel of some kind. Just get the mud off. It feels, it's quite light. There's no markings on it, nothing distinctive. But I'm going to ignore this because just as I was looking at that, my eyes just went over to a bowl, a clay pipe bowl. Now, you don't come across these every single day, so just by complete luck, you can sort of see why foreshore walking is so exciting for me, because you never know what you're going to find and when. So this is a real nice clay pipe bowl. Just from the there's no pasting on it, but just from the shape of it, I can tell it's round about 1700 to 1740 or 1750, as I've seen similar examples of this. Just having said that, you don't come across clay pipe bowls every day. I've just found a second one. Here we are. Not as complete, but very, very similar style as the previous one. Again, probably around about early 18th century, so 1700 to 1750. Again, very similar style as the other one that I found. But yeah, it seems like today's a clay pipe bowl day. This is very strange because I've just got the hat trick of clay pipe bowls now. This has never happened to me before. I've gone through days and weeks where I've never found a single one of these at all. So now I've found 3 on the same day. Again, this one not as good quality as the other 2, but again, similar style, similar period, 1700 to 1740. These pipe bowls would have come in when tobacco became a lot less expensive and smoking was kind of like the thing to do in London. So these types are typically most common to be found, but as I said, I've never found 3 in the same day. I've never found 2 in the same day. So yep, it's a first for me. Slightly odd shape. This is it in profile. This is called an onion bottle, so this is it in profile. So the top would have been here and the bottom here. It would have been hand blown. It's dated around about 1700 to 1800, and it would have been, as the name suggests, onion shaped. So it would have kind of like bulged out from there, and the neck of the bottle would have been there. These bottles were hand blown, as I said, and would have had a very wide bottom, and this is because these are found and used typically on ships. So you can imagine the ship rocking about. You don't want the bottle to rock about as well, so it's designed in a very specific way in order for the bottle not to break or fall over as it's out in the sea. And I'm guessing this would have been a remnant from when they would have dismantled ships, and there's a lot of these lying around, especially in Rotherhithe more than anywhere else. If you imagine Pirates of the Caribbean, this is the stuff that they would have drunk and wine out from. So I'm going to stop now, partly because the tide's coming in very quickly, partly because the camera in my battery is about to run out, but mainly because the hole in my shoe's got a lot bigger. If I've edited this video correctly, then hopefully I'll be able to seamlessly add in the fake pictures from the finds that I found today. Hopefully you've enjoyed the little introduction to mudlarking, and please do let me know if you do want to join me, and with a bit of luck I'll be making some more videos in the next few days and weeks.